right, everybody, it's good to see you. We are live, and I finally figured out the technical issues, so we should have a good show tonight and not have any problems, which is good because we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, big news today was Elon Musk agrees to complete the takeover of Twitter, which is welcome news. Hopefully now we can get some fairness on there and no more censorship. So we'll see how that plays out. But since we didn't get a chance to finish a lot of our conversation last week, there's a couple things I wanted to pick up on. And the first thing has to do with what happened in Italy. Giorgia Meloni had a tremendous victory. And hold on, sorry. Had a tremendous victory, and I want to talk about it because there's some things in there. Obviously, the media freaked out over her victory. Let me just make sure the sound works. So Meloni wins, and she's described as a far-right, fascist. I mean, the media freaks out. What we really had happen in Italy was the Italian people who were hit incredibly hard from COVID, rejected globalism. They elected somebody who is going to put their interest and their country first. And there's nothing radical about that. Giorgia Meloni ran on a platform, God, family, country. And they labeled her a fascist. Think about that for a second. God, family, country. What is extreme? What is radical about that platform? Shouldn't leaders of their countries... Hold on. Shouldn't leaders in other countries, or in your country, put their people of their nations first? Right? Isn't that their duty? I believe it is. I just want to make sure. Is there an echo right now? So anyway. All right, can everybody hear all right? Just make sure there's no sound. Yeah, you can hear? Cool. All right, so Giorgia Meloni wins in Italy. She takes back, she brings this Italy first platform, and the media freaks out. Now, let's listen to what some of her positions are, and you tell me if they seem if they seem radical and fascist to you. This is why they are so scared of her, though. Listen to what she said on her victory.
Potrei farne tante altre di queste domande. A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi: perché la famiglia è un nemico? Perché la famiglia fa così paura? C'è una risposta unica per tutte queste domande. Perché ci definisce, perché è la nostra identità. Perché tutto quello che ci definisce in questo tempo è un nemico, per chi vorrebbe che non avessimo più un'identità e che fossimo solamente schiavi, consumatori perfetti. E allora è sotto attacco l'identità nazionale, è sotto attacco l'identità religiosa, è sotto attacco l'identità di genere, è sotto attacco l'identità familiare. Non devo potermi definire italiana, cristiana, donna, madre, no. Io devo essere cittadino X, genere X, genitore 1, genitore 2, devo essere un numero. Perché quando sarò solamente un numero, quando non avrò più un'identità, quando non avrò più radici, beh, allora sarò lo schiavo perfetto in balia della grande speculazione finanziaria, il consumatore perfetto. E questa è la ragione per la quale oggi noi facciamo tanta paura. Questa è la ragione per la quale oggi questo appuntamento fa tanta paura. Perché noi non vogliamo essere dei numeri, noi siamo qui per dire che noi non siamo dei numeri, noi difenderemo il valore della persona umana, di ogni singola persona umana, perché ognuno di noi ha un codice genetico unico e irripetibile. E questo, piaccia o no, ha del sacro. Lo difenderemo Dio, la patria e la famiglia, che fanno tanto schifo a qualcuno. Lo faremo per difendere la nostra libertà, perché noi non saremo mai schiavi e semplici consumatori in balia della speculazione finanziaria. Ecco la nostra missione, ecco perché oggi sono venuta qui. Scriveva Chesterton ormai più di un secolo fa, vediamo se ve lo trovo, fuochi verranno attizzati per dimostrare che 2 più 2 fa 4, spade verranno sguainate per dimostrare che le foglie sono verdi in estate. Quel tempo è arrivato, signori, siamo pronti. Grazie.
She's right. And there's nothing that she's saying there, all right, that is fascist. She's talking about getting rid of these outside interests that are helping deteriorate and destroy a national identity. Countries are allowed to have a national identity. And for people from these countries, you know, this unfettered immigration is something she talks about a lot. You're just letting all these people in, and it erodes a national identity. But that is the goal of globalism. They are terrified of national identities because they don't want that anymore. They want everything around the globe to be interconnected based upon what they deem to be the right thing, right? You know, everyone needs to come together and have the exact same goals. Obviously, climate change is a big goal. Open borders, you know, everybody goes everywhere. They want to deteriorate people's attachment to their countries. And this is causing disasters to these countries. Putting your country first, you know, people that are elected to serve, that's your job. People are voting for you not because you're going to go and put the priorities of other nations ahead of your country, right? They're going to do it because they expect you to put them first. You're going to hear their suffering and you are going to do what it takes to get that done. Their suffering is more important to you than what's going on outside. And look what we have going on in the United States right now. This is why so many people, we're going to talk about Ukraine next, are upset with our government sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. Because in our own country right now, inflation is out of control. The cost of living is through the roof. People are having to work 2 to 3 jobs just to survive. All right. And our government, rather than coming up with solutions to help their own people, is writing blank checks to Ukraine. And it's not because we don't want Ukraine to win. It's not because we agree with Russia, okay? Because anytime you question this, you're a Putin puppet, right? It's because we're saying, hey, we're supposed to be your priority. We need help. How can you prioritize other countries when your own house is in disorder? And so Maloney's coming here and saying, you know, it's time we put Italy first. Our country, our values, our beliefs are under attack. I'm here to defend them. I want to make sure God, family, country. And everyone freaks out. You know, and that to me is crazy. I mean, what is radical about that phrase? And this is what people have to understand. Why globalists are scared of this. Why don't they want God, family, country? Why do they want to get these things? This is what people don't have to learn history about totalitarian regimes. There's a reason they don't want you believing in these things. Because you have to be fully loyal and devoted to the regime, right? If you believe in God, you believe there's a higher power that we all answer to, and that is the ultimate authority on what's good and what's bad. So that's why when dictators and authoritarians take over and take control, they go after religion. Because you can't be loyal to religion. Your ultimate loyalty cannot be to religion. It needs to be to the authoritarians in charge. You cannot believe that there's a higher power. The only higher power is those who are telling you what to do, what to think, and how to react. So they go for God. They go for the family because you have to be loyal to the country. You have to give yourself to the country. Now, this is where it's a little unique and why it's not even fascism. These are communists at play here. This is a left-wing socialist at play here. Normally, fascists would want country, right? Your ultimate, like if you went back to Nazi Germany, the ultimate authority for Hitler was the country. Everything had to be done for Germany, right? That was the motherland. Okay? So your loyalty wasn't to your family, it was to Germany. In this case, they don't want that either. They don't want your loyalty to the United States. The United States isn't the most important thing. Italy isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is this global order that we've created that is telling you what to think, how to behave, what policies to pursue. And in this case, they're globalist, open borders, left-wing, socialist policies, right? And anybody who dares speaks against those is a radical, is far right, and an extremist. And they, unfortunately, control much of the media. That's why today it was so exciting to see Elon Musk taking over and agreeing to finish the Twitter takeover. Because Twitter, obviously conservatives, you're censored on there. So anytime somebody goes against this globalist agenda that they have, they are far right. They are extreme. They are backwards. It's Nazism, right? How can you say that you're going to put Italy first? How can you say you're going to put America first? That's fascism. That's Nazism. That's nationalism. You know, nationalism is all it means. It's an extreme pride in your country. But in my opinion, there is nothing wrong with your elected leaders wanting to put their country and their people first. And one of the things they do to dilute this is unfettered immigration, right? Because the more you bring in, if you leave your borders open, or you just pretend you don't have borders like we're doing in the United States right now, what happens is you get tons and millions of people coming in your country, and it dilutes your national identity. Because immigrants don't have people that are coming in, they don't have that same, they didn't grow up in the United States. They don't have those U.S. values. So the more you bring in, the less ties the people in your country now have to the United States or to Italy. And Italy's seeing firsthand the destruction it's causing by having open borders. I mean, the definition of a nation, in the definition of nation, is the word borders. If you don't have borders, you don't have a nation. If your politicians who you elect are putting other nations and other interests ahead of their own people while they are suffering, that is what's extreme, right? And so let's look at how the media reacted to her election. Predictably,
Italy is poised to welcome its first far-right leader since Benito Mussolini.
A far-right leader set to take the lead in Italy for the first time since Benito Mussolini.
Her politics have been compared to that of Mussolini.
The first far-right leader since Mussolini.
The first far-right leader since Benito Mussolini.
First far-right leader since Mussolini.
First far-right leader since Benito Mussolini.
First far-right leader since Mussolini. First far-right leader since Benito Mussolini.
We So they say, so you got the gist there. Obviously, first thing they did was go to Mussolini, tie her to somebody who is universally despised. First thing they did was go to Mussolini, tie somebody who is universally despised. Tie her to someone who's. So you got the gist from that clip. The first thing he did was they went to Mussolini. Tie her to Mussolini, a person who is universally despised. Okay? And say her policies are his policies, but they never do it the other way around. This is the problem. So she's a far-right leader because she believes God, family, country. Okay? We had an election she's a far-right leader because she believes God, family, country. We had an election in Brazil. You had Jair Bolsonaro, who is a far-right, obviously allied Donald Trump. He runs for re-election. He's running against Lula, who's an ally of Castro. Okay? So when the left has these, there's no such thing anymore as far left. There's only far right. Because far left is what the globalists want. They don't want to demonize it because that's what everyone should be. Because far left is what the in their mind. So look how they characterize Bolsonaro. The AP polls signal a commanding lead for former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in Sunday's election in Brazil, which may signal the return of the world's fourth largest democracy to leftist government after 4 years of far-right politics led by incumbent Jair Bolsonaro. Far-right politics led by incumbent Jair Bolsonaro. Far-right politics led by incumbent. And then, but here's a picture of him with Castro. And then giving Castro a football jersey. A soccer jersey. All right? All right? There's him, and that doesn't make him radical, correct? So he's not radical. But she is, because she believes in God, family, country. All right? Fidel Castro is a murderer. There's him, and that doesn't make him radical, correct? So he's not radical. Communist. But she is, because she's not in God, family, country. Because there is no such thing. Fidel Castro is a murderer. There's far left is what they want, and that doesn't make him radical. Far right, on the other hand, is outwardly communist. But she is, because she's not God, family, country. Because there is no such thing. Fidel Castro is a murderer. Far left is what they want, and that doesn't make him radical. Far right, on the other hand, outwardly communist. Only loyal. But she is, because she's not God, but in this case, we are now Fidel Castro is a murderer. Far left is what they want, and that doesn't make him radical. Far right, on the other hand, outwardly communist. Only loyal. She is, because she's not God, but around us are now Fidel Castro is a murderer. Far left is what they want, and that doesn't make him right on the other hand, outwardly only loyal. She is, because she's not God, but around us are now Fidel Castro is a murderer. Far left is what they want, and that doesn't make him right on the other hand, outwardly only loyal. Because she's not God, but around us are now Fidel Castro is a murderer. Far left is what they want, and that doesn't make him right on the other hand, outwardly only loyal. Because she's not God, but around us are now Fidel Castro. How's it doing now? How's it doing now? How's it doing? Nevada, how's it going now? Is it still looping? Looping? Sounds good? All right. Okay. So but this is so now that I finally got it back working, man, it's tough, huh? So yeah, so I mean, God, family, country is a threat to these people. They want you internalize this for a second. They want you to believe that those three words are wrong, are something to be scared of, and something that we cannot tolerate. Right? That make those three words, right, make someone a fascist. Believing in God, family, country makes you a fascist. How crazy is that? Right? Think about that. Really think about that. God, family, country makes someone a fascist. So what I want to I want to make sure the sound's working. So let's look at what Maloney had to say. Let's look at what Tucker had to say about her.
If you want to establish totalitarian control over a country, of course you have to destroy the family first. Because nobody with deep family loyalty, the one thing every person should have, no one who has that will ever pledge absolute obedience to a politician. Why would you? So if you want absolute obedience, you have to sever family ties. And that's why state schools brainwash your children with values that you despise and then instruct your children to turn you in as a thought criminal if you object. That's happening. It's not your imagination, and it's happening for a reason. Wokeness is not just a political ideology. It's not just something annoying that emerged on college campuses that we can ignore. It's a state religion that supplants actual religion, which is also being destroyed. There's a reason the strip bars and the liquor stores and the weed dispensaries stayed open under COVID, but the churches didn't.
So yeah, I mean, Tucker is right. These people, these globalists, they want you to put left-wing socialist policies first. And anyone who disagrees with them is a threat. And so they are going to continue to drill this home and label anyone who goes against them as a radical, as a fascist. You know, fascism is the new racism. Racism lost its luster. They've used it for decades, calling everyone who disagreed with them a racist. Now it's fascism. Fascism is about as scary as a term as you can come up with, because who's the first person you think of when you hear the word fascism? Adolf Hitler, right? It's the first person you think of when you hear the word fascism is Adolf Hitler. So they figured, let's call everyone on the right who has these values, God, family, country. That's nationalism, right? Well, what's nationalism go to? Fascism. What's fascism go to? Adolf Hitler. So they tie it all together with the scariest things you can imagine to make you think that everybody who believes in these things, everybody who believes that putting in America first, putting Italy first, putting their own country first is a fascist, because nationalism, according to these people, is evil. If you are a nationalist, you are a racist, bigot, xenophobe, selfish individual, right? Who only cares about your own country and your own people. Well, when we elect people to lead us, we expect them to put us first. We expect when inflation is at 8.1% that our representatives in Washington are going to put our needs and our interests ahead of other people around the world. We're suffering. We need your help. We understand that what's happening in Ukraine and Russia is not good. We understand that Russia is acting aggressively. But we need help right now. I can't pay my mortgage. I can't pay my rent. My kids are going to failing schools. In California, last week, 2 small business owners murdered defending their stores and their property from being stolen, from being robbed. Because the police won't do their jobs because they're not allowed to. And here Congress is ignoring all of this, writing blank checks to Ukraine, while the American people have been getting hammered for almost 2 years now, with no end in sight. In fact, the worst is yet to come. And so when leaders come out and say, wait a minute, this is wrong, right? What about your own people? There is nothing radical about God, family, country. We should all believe in those 3 things. The people that are telling you those things are wrong, they're the ones who are wrong. They're the ones who are on the wrong side of history, but they control the media, the messaging, and any time somebody steps out and challenges them, they are instantly demonized. So then we get to what's happening. I mean, I wanted to move into a little bit onto this, the Nord Stream pipeline. So the pipeline, because this goes into it all with globalism, right? Last week and a half ago, Nord Stream 2 pipeline explodes. 3 different explosions. Pipelines leaking everywhere. World inches, Putin comes out, blames the West, right? Putin says it's sabotage. The West is saying it's Putin. And we're inching towards nuclear war. Okay? And anybody who even had the audacity, right, to suggest, to think rationally about it and say, wait a minute, why would Vladimir Putin blow up his own pipeline? If you even uttered that sentence, right, you became a threat. You became a Putin sympathizer, right? A Putin puppet. But our own president, Joe Biden, told us he was going to do that. So let's listen to what Joe Biden said about the pipeline.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? Since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control.
We will. I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
He even has a smirk on his face after. So Joe Biden told us, if Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, we're going to get rid of that pipeline. We're going to blow up that pipeline. Then it happens. And Putin says, you guys sabotaged our pipeline. And the West says, no, that was Russia doing it on their own. But this is what doesn't make sense. We have to think about this. Because right now it's becoming clearer and clearer that the goal of this war is no longer peace, right? They no longer want peace. And that was no more apparent than when Elon Musk came out and did his little poll, right? Musk put this poll up. and talked about, okay, let's try and get a peaceful solution. We'll redo the referendums, because these referendums that the people voted on were like 90% saying they wanted to join Russia. So let's have the UN conduct the referendums in these regions, a legitimate vote, and if the people decide to join Russia, they can go. If they decide to stay with Ukraine, they can go. And Zelensky immediately called Elon Musk a Putin puppet, right? Zelensky would be dead if it wasn't for Elon Musk. And then Zelensky today signed a law that's saying he's not going to have any peace talks as long as Vladimir Putin's in power. So the goal is no longer peace. And this is why this is incredibly dangerous, because now we're talking about the goal now is regime change, which I think it's always been the entire time. So we look back at this pipeline. That we agree with Russia. We're sitting here trying to tell you that when you look at this objectively and you think and you use your brain, it doesn't make sense. We have now Russia out there sending nuclear submarines on testing missions, threatening to use nuclear weapons. And instead of de-escalating the situation, Western leaders are wanting to escalate it. They don't want peace. They say, we're not going to have peace now as long as Vladimir Putin's in charge. We went from wanting a peaceful end to this war, supposedly, to now we're not doing anything until there's regime change. That shouldn't be the goal. And this is the key thing. This quote, no matter what political reasons are given for a war, the underlying reason is always economic. What do we have going on around the globe right now? We have a global economic slowdown. It's not just happening in the United States, it's happening everywhere. Europe right now, inflation is even worse than in the United States. Okay? And these leaders and these countries, what have they done? They created this mess through their irresponsible fiscal policies, right? The continual spending, the stimuli, the bills, the Inflation Reduction Act, the $1.2 trillion stimulus. They brought us here. And rather than accept results, I believe we have a political class that wants to take the easy way out. Because what's the best way to kickstart economies? War. War is the best way to kickstart economies. Ask Franklin Delano Roosevelt what the best way to kickstart economies, because everybody wants to go back and talk about the New Deal. The New Deal did not bring the United States out of the Great Depression. World War II brought the United States out of the Great Depression. The New Deal was failing. We were spending tons and tons of money. The government was spending money out of control, and the Depression was still going on. Then World War II breaks out, and suddenly you had to mobilize all the industries into making war materials, right? So people had to get jobs. You had all these public works projects, and it kick-started the global economy. So what's happening here is the same thing. These people want to take the easy way out. In many cases, they want war, because the war is going to help erase their economic failures, the decisions that led to their economic failures. And they can keep making those decisions and not have to take responsibility for their actions. And anybody who questions them is a Putin puppet. And how did they expect Vladimir Putin to react? You know, the left, the Democrats of the United States have spent 6 years now criticizing Russia, criticizing Putin. Did they not, and Europe, same thing, did they not expect Putin to lash out? And they put themselves in this position by pushing climate change and green energy at all costs. Because while they were doing that, Putin was laughing at them because they still had to get the oil from him. And now they don't have the means domestically to produce the heat, the gas, the oil they need. And then Putin says, wait a minute, I have the high hand here. So for him to blow up his own pipeline, it simply doesn't make sense. And instead of having leaders who are willing to look back and say, wait a minute, let's go for peace. That's all we want here. Just suggesting a peace deal does not make you a Putin puppet. Because if we have a nuclear attack, a nuclear war, any war, because if war breaks out in Ukraine, it doesn't even have to be a nuclear war. If war breaks out in Ukraine, the entire globe is going to go to war. Millions of people are going to die. I don't want that. None of us should want that. We should want peace. Simply suggesting that does not make you a Putin puppet. So people need to think about this. Use their brains. Why would they do that? They wouldn't. Joe Biden himself said he was going to destroy the pipeline. Let's look at what Secretary of State Blinken said about the pipeline. So then they say, no, we didn't do it. Putin did it. But then they make comments like this.
Ultimately, this is also a tremendous opportunity. It's a tremendous opportunity to once and for all remove the dependence on Russian energy and thus to take away from Vladimir Putin the weaponization of energy as a means of advancing his imperial designs. That's very significant, and that offers tremendous strategic opportunity for the years to come. But meanwhile, we're determined to do everything we possibly can to make sure that the consequences of all of this are not borne by citizens in our countries or, for that matter, around the world.
So you got Blinken here now saying that this is an opportunity. The Nord Stream pipeline is an opportunity to cut us, to stop us from being dependent on Russian oil. It sounds like he's happy that it happened. Joe Biden told it was going to happen. Now we got our Secretary of State saying that, hey, this is a good thing. For what? All we're getting out of this is more war, more deaths, the world closer to the brink of war. Cooler heads need to prevail. So I wanted to debut a new segment tonight before we go into some Q&A. I wanted to call it The Biggest L, and I'm going to pick something on the internet that I find that is ridiculous. I actually have two tonight because one of them just happened today. The first one, Secretary Cardona, who is our wonderful Secretary of Education, made comments today in regards to abortion, right? And he says that on our college campuses, access to abortion is necessary for students to thrive and have a fulfilling life. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Thank you, Mr. President. I share your grave concerns about maintaining access to contraception and reproductive health services on our college campuses, and ensuring there's accurate, reliable information for students and for educators. Students need access to healthcare to thrive in school and in life, and that includes reproductive healthcare.
Insanity. I went to college for 4 years. Many of us did. How many of the women there, the girls there, were talking about they didn't feel safe because they didn't have access to abortion on campus? They couldn't thrive in the college environment because they didn't have access to abortion. This is crazy. Our Secretary of Education is focused on making sure we have access to abortion in universities. Meanwhile, American schools are failing. Okay? Failing with flying colors. Especially after the pandemic forced schools closed for 2 years in some places, in places like California. In California, you have 30% of students doing math at grade level. You have less than half of students reading and writing at grade level. Instead of focusing on those things, we have the people, these clowns that are running our government, all they're concerned about is making sure girls in college campuses have access to abortions because they cannot thrive on the college campus without that. Why aren't they focused on why does college cost $50,000 a year? We want to talk about student loan forgiveness. Let's come up with a way to make college more affordable. Maybe not everyone needs to go to college. Maybe we should start pushing trade schools, focusing on getting people into the trades, because right now we have a trade crisis in this country. We need people in trade school. Maybe we could focus on making sure teachers get more pay so they stay in school, good quality teachers. Of all the things they could prioritize, they're focused on abortion access in college campuses. Not making sure kids can read, write, and do math at grade level. Not making sure kids go to college and get their money's worth. So they don't come out of college with $200,000 in debt in a major that's never going to get them a job. Priorities. They want to put political agendas ahead of what actually matters. And this is what is unacceptable. Same thing with the money in Ukraine, right? Inflation out of control. Cost of living out of control. And instead of focusing on that, they're focused on investigating Donald Trump, sending blank checks to Ukraine, going after conservative pro-life activists in Pennsylvania whose case had already been thrown out. They're not focused on what really matters. And that is why people have lost faith in their government, not just in the United States. That's why they lost faith in Italy. And they voted for somebody who, quote unquote, is far right. Because what did she say? I'm putting you first. My priorities are God, family, country. You matter to me. Italy matters to me. Just like Donald Trump said, America matters to me. The American people matter to me. The government works for you. That's how it is. That's the priority. And so this is why people have lost faith in the government, because they see things like this and they say, this is ridiculous. I can't pay my mortgage this month, right? I have to work 2 jobs. I can't afford to buy a home. And this is what my leaders in government are talking about. They're focused on making sure kids on college campuses have access to abortion. I never once, I'm not saying it doesn't happen because I'm sure it does, but I didn't see every girl running around in college saying, I got to have access to an abortion, otherwise I can't go to school here. I cannot thrive without it. Our government is broke. Our leaders, it is not just Democrat, it's both sides of the aisle. These people are not dealing with the everyday struggles that the American people are. And so they aren't concerned about inflation. Okay? They're not working 2 jobs. In many cases, they're not working any jobs because they're not doing anything when they're in Congress anyway. They are tone deaf to the strugglings, the everyday struggles that the American people are facing right now. And that's why it's not a priority to them. And that's why I believe we have to start electing people. Money alone, being wealthy, should not be the reason somebody gets elected to politics, right? Because that's what they look like. That's what they look for in candidates. People that are wealthy, that can self-fund. That's not what's important. We need to send people to represent us who deal with the same struggles we deal with. There are too many people in politics that are in it simply to feed their own egos, for self-gain, and for greed. And that is why we have a government that is no longer working for the people. And now that you have people upset, they want to weaponize government against people that want to change it. They want you to believe God, family, country is evil, is fascist. The second one for this week's Biggest L, I'm going to put it up here because I want to crush, because I've talked about that the election coming up might be one of the last chances for Republicans to prove to the American people that they are ready to govern. Okay? And we actually want results. People are suffering right now, and they don't always trust the Republican Party. I mean, that's not me saying that that's the truth. They say, a lot of times you can say they don't trust the Republican Party because when they give the Republican Party power, nothing changes. And so Kevin McCarthy puts up a tweet today. It's been 1 year since Merrick Garland treated parents who attend school board meetings as domestic terrorists. Since then, Democrats have refused to hold him accountable. Not even a single hearing on the issue. That changes once Republicans are in the majority. What changes? What's holding him accountable? If all we're going to do when we take control is have hearings on television that produce no results, then we are going to squander this opportunity. And the American people are going to kick us out in 2024 or 2026. Because right now you have the Democratic Party consolidating their power, right? They're trying to make it as hard as possible for Republicans to get elected and to stay elected. And we are faced with a golden opportunity. If we continue to pick leaders to lead our party who do not have the courage to actually do things. Merrick Garland has proven himself incapable and unworthy of the office he holds. He is running the Department of Justice like his own personal Gestapo, going after anyone or anything that disagrees with him politically. He has not shown any ability or willingness to conduct the Department of Justice with integrity or with honor. And he's wielding the FBI as his police force. He should not stay in that position. If we're just going to give Republicans power and all they're going to do is drag Merrick Garland in for a hearing and get some sound bites where they could post them and send them in their fundraising emails, the American people are going to be fed up. They're not giving us power this time because they want us to hold hearings. They want us to have investigations. They want results. The time for hearings is over. Look at the difference when Democrats take power than when Republicans take power. The Democrats are going to put you in Guantanamo for trespassing at the Capitol. Republicans are going to have hearings and vow to get to the bottom of it, and then never get to the bottom of it. When Donald Trump was elected president in 2016, Republicans had a massive majority in the House. They had a 4-seat majority in the Senate, and obviously they controlled the White House. And they could not pass any of Donald Trump's biggest agenda items. That's why they got kicked out in 2018. Because they didn't deliver on the, what's the term I'm looking for? They didn't deliver on the mandate that they gave Trump and the Republicans. They gave them a mandate in 2016, and then they couldn't get health care done. They couldn't build the border wall, and they said, you know what? You guys don't do what you say. Meanwhile, the Democrats win in 2020. They have a slim majority in the House, an 8-seat majority in the House, a 50-50 Senate, and they have passed every single one of their main agenda items. And you have Republican leaders now going around saying, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pass a bill and we're going to get rid of Biden's 87,000 IRS agents. That sounds great. I agree. Let's get rid of those agents. You know, they're not going to, though, because Joe Biden is going to veto the bill. People are scared. People want to know that our country, that the law is applied equally. And this is where people make mistakes. Republicans are not asking, conservatives are not asking for the FBI, the Department of Justice, for law enforcement to not prosecute Republicans. If somebody breaks the law, they should go to jail. But we're asking that the law is applied equally to both sides. Today, Tony Bobulinski was just on Tucker Carlson. He's back. He talked about how he met with the FBI. He gave them evidence of crimes committed by Hunter and Joe Biden And they brushed it under the table and they never followed up with it. Meanwhile, when the FBI gets a scent of a pro-life activist in Pennsylvania who pushes a man out of the way who had gotten up into his face yelling racial, ethnic, slurs at him and his son, pushes him, guy falls, case gets thrown out in court. But when the FBI hears about that, they raid his home at 4 a.m. But they don't go after Hunter Biden. They investigate Donald Trump for classified materials, but they didn't investigate Barack Obama, who left classified materials in an abandoned Sears store. Hillary Clinton, her classified emails were found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Nothing happened to her. And we need Republicans that are up to task at this moment. And, Kevin McCarthy wants to talk about he's going to take on big tech. If that's true, why did you get $300,000 in donations from big tech last quarter alone? They're not serious. You cannot defeat the swamp if your leaders are beholden to it. And that is why I put this as my second biggest L for this week. Because we cannot squander the opportunity that's before us, because Republicans are going to win in November. I want them to win in November. But after that happens, we have to appoint and select leaders in both houses of Congress who are up to the moment and who are actually going to do things. Kevin should have said in that post, on day one, I am going to put articles of impeachment up for a vote against Merrick Garland in Congress because there's plenty of things he can impeach him for. They impeached Donald Trump for the crimes of Hunter Biden. But they're not going to do that for Merrick Garland because 20 Republican senators voted to confirm him. Because they know that if they do go to impeach Merrick Garland, the media is going to be mean to them. So they're not going to do it. But you're playing with, so one side wants to play with Nerf guns, the other side is firing bazookas. Which side do you think is going to win? Republicans have to wake up to the reality of the enemy they face. You'll never be nice enough, no matter what you do, no matter how many times you bend the knee to them and you give them what you want. The Democrats are never going to stop coming for you. Eventually, you're going to be no use to them. And they're going to wipe you out. And we're approaching the point where the American people are not going to give Republicans many more chances to prove they can get things done. And if hearings where Lindsey Graham or Jim Jordan gets a good soundbite and sends out a fundraising email after, if that's all we're going to go for 2 years, it's not going to be enough. Our country is under attack from within. Globalist forces want to permanently change America. And they want you to believe that America first is wrong. So I'd like to take some questions. If anyone's still watching, we can have some questions. And next week, I'm going to obviously try and fix some of the issues again. I might use a new streaming app, but I'd love to get some questions if you guys have any. Steve, how you doing? Yeah, I mean, there's always a way to stand firm. This is the problem. So I'm glad you asked the question. You can always stand firm. It's just that Congress has the power of the purse. Congress, you can do a lot of things. Congress decides where money goes and where money flows. You can stop a lot of things by cutting off the gravy train. The question is, do you have the guts to do it? This is where Republicans tend to back off. Tommy, you can ask me about that after this question. This is why I say we need new leaders who aren't afraid of this. Listen, the media is never going to like us as Republicans. They're going to criticize us for no matter what we do, but it doesn't matter what the media thinks. It doesn't matter what the left thinks. The people who elected us want results. They put us there for a reason. So even though we're going to take heat for it, we're going to earn favor in their eyes if we stand strong and we do what we were sent there to do. Cut off funding of the government until Merrick Garland has to either change what he's doing or he steps down. Don't give Joe Biden the money he needs to run the government until we get the changes we need. And yeah, Jim Jordan, first let me ask about Herschel Walker. Tommy, what do you want to know about Herschel? I saw the story yesterday. I saw the post by his son. Listen, Herschel Walker, he's been upfront about his past. He's admitted he's not proud of how he behaved when he was younger. And, I question why his son comes out now over this. Now, with the abortion thing, I don't know. He's denying it. I'd like to see the receipts they claim they have. They showed a picture of a card, but they haven't proposed the receipts. Listen, let me put it this way. These are political games in the ninth inning. They're stepping up the attacks because Herschel Walker is ahead, and they know they need to keep that seat if they want to keep control of the Senate. The most important thing about Herschel Walker is how he's going to vote when he gets there. Everyone's made mistakes in the past that they are not proud of. And I know Herschel probably wishes he could take back a lot of how he behaved. But Raphael Warnock is no saint. Raphael Warnock is a terrible human being who's done far worse than what Herschel Walker did. And votes worse. Votes at odds with the people of his own state. So I trust that Herschel Walker is going to vote the way we need him to in the Senate. And I think this is just typical slander and noise. They're drumming up an issue that he's already talked about, and they're trying to make it bigger because they're throwing the Hail Mary, right? And now his son is obviously upset. And that's something Herschel should deal with. He should deal with the family issues and talk to his son. But I'm worried about right now we need these votes because our country is under attack. And if we do not take back the Senate, like I said, they have a 50-50 Senate right now, and they've gotten everything done. Everything. We had a 4-seat majority in 2016, and we couldn't get our biggest agenda items passed. We cannot afford not to take back the Senate and get as big a majority as we can, because you're always going to have senators like Mitt Romney and others that lose their nerve. And we need to counteract that with people like Herschel Walker who are going to vote the way we need them to vote. This election is extremely important, and I think it makes sense. Listen, Democrats elected Ted Kennedy 6 times, and he drunkenly drove his car into a body of water, killed a woman, and he's one of their heroes. They talk about him as the lion of the Senate. So I find their attacks on Herschel disingenuous. I believe it's politics. I'm not saying that Herschel made great decisions his whole life. He's open about it. He didn't. But they're trying to put the spin on it. Yeah, Jim Jordan with big tech. Jim Jordan's a tough thing. I think now we see what Jim Jordan is. Clearly, I believe that Jim Jordan... obviously, he was humbled by the fact that his state party went for him. If we paid attention to the redistricting process, I've talked about this, Rich Bears has talked about this a little. The Ohio GOP, Mike DeWine and Donald Trump had a rift, and they were actually going to write Jim Jordan's seat out of the congressional map when they did redistricting. And I believe that Kevin McCarthy went to Jim Jordan and said, listen, I'll save your seat, but you need to bend the knee. And since then, Jim has completely bent the knee to Kevin McCarthy and big tech. And then, unfortunately, this is what happens. And this is why I talk about why it's so important that we get people in Congress that are, listen, it's easy to be corrupted. People want to stay there when they get there. But when it comes time to it, they say, listen, we're going to kick you out. They're going to do things to stay there. We need people that don't care about getting kicked out, that want to do what's right. My philosophy is if I go there and I vote in accordance with my principles, I obviously got elected because people agreed with my principles. If I vote that way and they kick me out, then so be it. But I'm not going to change who I am and what I believe because I want to stay here. How long will it take to get enough America First candidates in Congress? Well, it depends. Like I said, that's why this election is so important. It's going to be harder if we win in November and we continue to have leaders like Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell, because they are actively going to crush America First candidates. They're not going to turn around and say, look, we won and we're going to get there. They're going to continue. The more those people stay in power, the more power they get, because the money goes to them, right? Because Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell raise hundreds of millions of dollars because of their positions as leaders of the party. And they're going to use that money to fund candidates that they agree with. And listen, Kevin can type on Twitter all he wants that he's America First. He can say that statement. He is not. Money does not lie. The evidence is there. Look what they did to J.R. Majewski in Ohio. They have completely abandoned him over a hit piece that even the writers of the hit piece said they didn't have all the information. They slandered Majewski. They said he'd never served in Afghanistan, even though they acknowledged that the records were incomplete that they were using. And immediately, the Congressional Leadership Fund, the NRCC, abandoned Majewski because they never wanted him to begin with because he's America First. If we take a stand after we win in November and we elect new leadership closely aligned with the America First message, it can happen sooner. I think McConnell is going to go this cycle. I think Trump's made it obvious that when he wins that he's going to push for new leadership. But I also have hesitations about who's going to replace him. Because if you pay attention, Rick Scott is clearly making moves to replace Mitch McConnell. But every day, Rick Scott kind of goes back and forth, because yesterday he was calling Donald Trump a racist for his comments about McConnell's wife. He called her chow, right? And Rick Scott said, it's never good to be racist. So I have a problem with, it's very difficult to figure out who you need your leaders to be, because a lot of people are going to pretend to be America First so they can get in positions of power. But when they get there, they're going to go back to being swampers. That's why we really have to look. You have to follow the money. You cannot take what everyone says at face value. And, I would like to see in the Senate, I think Josh Hawley would be good. I'm trying to think who else. Rand Paul would be a good leader. People like that, I think, are good time. The Senate's tougher because you do have a little, Tim Scott could have been, but he's totally sold himself down the river too. Proved he's not America First. Ted Cruz, same thing. In the Senate, it's slim pickings. I would say Josh Hawley, Rand Paul would be my top picks to be leaders. I don't think Rand wants it. I don't think he'd get it. Hawley, same thing. He hasn't been there that long. Not sure he'd get it. I think, Rick Scott, would Rick Scott be better than Mitch McConnell? Yes. Is he full-blown America First MAGA? No, I don't believe so, because he where was he after the election? He was quiet. And yeah, I think I did name all the good senators. That's the thing that's funny. Tommy, you're right. Listen, I honestly think, Darth Snyder, you made the comment, Kevin should get the gear until 2024. I understand why Trump hasn't gone after McCarthy. He thinks it's in his best interest. He wants to get through and take back both chambers. I think at this point it's obvious. Republicans are going to win in November. So I think it's no longer a question of if Republicans are going to win. It's a question of how many seats, how big of a majority are they going to win. And my thing, why I think he has to do this now, why we need leadership now in both chambers, is because, like I said, the American people are frustrated. They don't necessarily... There was a poll by Trafalgar that came out after McCarthy gave his speech detailing his contract with America. And Trafalgar asked people and said, do you think Kevin McCarthy and the GOP said enough in their commitment to America to deserve power? 49% said no. That's a problem. These people are going to be the face of your party because you're not in the White House. So when they go for voices of the party, it's going to be McCarthy and it's going to be McConnell. And right now, the American people are not voting Republican because they're excited about what the Republican Party is giving them. They are not excited about the commitment to America because it's stale talking points. They're voting for him because the Democrats are a complete disaster and they're struggling. And so we're going to win, not because we deserve, not because the American people say, hey, I really am excited about what you're offering us, is because it's going to be because, hey, because I can't pay my bills. And so if we win this time and we don't rise to the occasion, the American people are not, they're going to lose their faith and they're going to say, listen, I can't keep giving you guys power because you don't do anything. Sometimes it's like you stick with the devil you know because the devil you don't know isn't that great. And when you listen to McCarthy and McConnell talk, there's nothing in there. There's nothing of substance there. So, you know, any other things? Well, Louis Gohmert is no longer going to be in the House. He will be gone after, Steve, he'll be gone after January because he ran for Attorney General in Texas instead of running for re-election. So he's not actually going to be there. Who would I like to see in the House? I mean, there's some people I think are good. I really have grown fond of Thomas Massie. I know Thomas Massie had some instances where he went against Donald Trump, but he did it for the right reasons. It was mostly over fiscal policy and fiscal spending. So yeah, Gohmert won't be there. Listen, I'm glad you brought up Mastriano and Lake. Carrie Lake's a rock star. I think Carrie Lake, I listen to her talk. She's the future of the Republican Party, man. She is the heir apparent to Donald Trump. And Doug Mastriano, it is a crime what the Republicans have done to Doug Mastriano. In one of the most important races in the country. And don't think for a second that they're not helping Mastriano because part of it is because they know Pennsylvania is so important for Trump in 2024. This is the thing. This is a chess match between the establishment and Donald Trump. And I want to make sure that Trump knows that they can pretend all they want to kiss his butt. But when push comes to shove, they don't believe in his message. These people are bought and paid for swampers. They've been there too long. They're beholden to their big donors, their lobbyists, and their globalist causes. I mean, listen, do you want your Speaker of the House who's a roommate with Frank Luntz? Is that what you want? Is that America first? Right? Is that America first? That's all you got to say about that. I mean... So I'd like to see, maybe Thomas Massie in the House. 2 years ago, you would have said Jim Jordan, right? But unfortunately, it looks like he's sold out to big tech. But Massie's doing a really good job. I think he's somebody who is a true conservative, believes in the America First message. He's voted no on money to Ukraine. This is the thing. Let me ask you guys a question. If Republicans take control of the House and Senate, let me ask you guys watching this question. If they take control of the House and the Senate and the green light, the money keeps getting green lit, the blank checks keep flowing to Ukraine, are you going to be happy? Are you going to be upset? Is that going to give you confidence in it? Because if you think it's going to change, it's not. Go look at the votes. Over half of the Republicans in Congress are green lighting Ukraine aid. And like I said, it's not because we are Putin puppets. It's because the American people are suffering right now, and that should be the top priority. Yeah, and Trump's super PAC, I mean, he just created the new one. I think he does have to spend money to help some of these people get across the line. I hope he does. I really think he needs to give some money to Doug Mastriano. And we do need a government shutdown. They should have done it already. They should have shut down the government and said, we are not going to fund your government, Joe Biden, until we get answers about what is going on at the FBI and the Department of Justice. Who cares if the media is mad at you? The American people are finally going to be happy you grew a spine. Who cares if the government shuts down? They're not doing anything anyway. The only thing they're doing is every day giving more millions to Ukraine. They haven't done anything in 2 years. Shut it down. Who cares? Would anybody even notice? Oh, what? I can't go on a government website because the government shut down? Boo-hoo. It's not like they're working for us when they're there right now anyway. So, yeah, I mean, we have a long road ahead. I appreciate you guys being patient with me with the technical difficulties. I'm going to work on it again. I might switch streaming programs that I'm using. But next week, we're going to talk about some other stuff. But I want you just to leave and think about this. You know, God, family, country. Think about that. We should all believe in those three things. America would be a much better place if we all held those three things dear. There's nothing wrong with being proud to be an American. There's nothing wrong with wanting elected officials who put your interests ahead of the world's interests. Does that mean we don't want to help other countries? No. It means we've got to take care of our own first. 8% inflation. 8%. Mortgages, 7% now. Gas hitting, and where I am, $6 a gallon. People are racking up credit card debt. Highest credit card debt numbers in history right now. People are racking up debt just to survive. It's time that our leaders took care of them first. So thank you guys. I'll see you next week. I appreciate it. Have a good one.